us how you define success. How do we define success as we're discovering what our passions are?
Well, it's a little bit like about that model I talked about, right? Passion to me is a big part of it. So success for anybody is they're doing something they love. And I think, interestingly, it doesn't matter. It's different for everybody. But you have to love it. You have to be good at it. And it's got to be able to pay you something enough, right? Well enough that you're okay with it. I would add the piece that, do no harm. The little caveat there, do no harm. But, the danger is if you have two of those three, sometimes it's the worst place you can be. If you're really good at something and it pays you really well, you're going to do it, probably for a long time. But if you're not passionate about it, it's a big mistake. Because all you're going to do is get old, and at some point you're going to wake up someday, and it's one of Richard's books, Repacking Your Bags. The idea that when he was on one of these safaris in Africa, he dumped out his backpack and a chief asked him, "Do these things make you happy?" And they got into this conversation about all the stuff that we drag with us throughout our life. There's a point that we have to just take this thing out and look at it all and say, if none of this makes me happy, I've got to do something else. And the thing that struck me about that book is it said that we all will do this for sure. So if you're making great money in a job you're good at, but you're not passionate at all about it, the worst thing you can do is stay there for 40 years and make it your entire career, because then you're going to repack your bag when you're 65 years old, which is like one of the worst times to do it. Worse is 70, 75, 80, because it's about the regret of what you didn't do. And so if it's going to happen, and you believe it's going to happen for sure, you should do it today. And the other thing is, if you're passionate about something and you're good at it, but it doesn't pay enough for you to live a decent life, that's a faster failure, right? Because you can't stay in that situation. To me, the most dangerous is doing something you're good at that pays you well, because you'll miss the opportunity in your lifetime to do what you're passionate about.
Yeah. The tough part is being able to combine all of those things together. Right?
And to think about what they really are, because I think so many people ask themselves the wrong questions to get there. I'm in a job, I'm good at it, I don't really love it, I'm good at it, pays really well. And the questions we begin to ask ourselves are, how could I ever leave? How could I ever leave? And, that's this internal dialogue that we have, and the answer is, well, you can't. And the more we ask it, the more it's confirmed, well, you can't. And that keeps us there for 40 years. Somebody's got to wake up and really challenge themselves to say, how can I do what I'm good at? Because I have an idea of what I'm good at that is coupled with this thing I'm passionate about, and I've got to find a way to make money at it. And how can I do that? Where does that job exist for me? That's the question to ask over and over again. There's a friend of mine, I haven't talked to her in years, up in Canada, named Janice. And she had a daughter who was 11 or 12, came home in tears and said, I want to be a poet, but everybody at school told me poets don't make any money. And she was crying. I want to be a poet, but they don't make any money. And her mom, who's so brilliant, said, let's find out. So she took poems that her daughter had written. They went to Kinko's at the time, FedEx office, right? And they made greeting cards. They just took the daughter's poems, and they made a box of greeting cards, or several boxes. They went home and they just knocked on some neighbors' doors and said, I'm selling greeting cards, whatever it was, for $10 or $15. Of course, they sold them all to their neighbors, right? But it inspired the daughter to realize, oh my gosh, poets can make greeting cards and sell them and make money. And I think something like around 18 or 24 months later, she was selling like $50,000 of greeting cards of her poems. And the message was like, can we? Yeah. Ask the right questions and do it. It's just this brilliant example that says, and there's poets, by the way, that make $1 million, right? And so there's somebody in every possible field that you're passionate about doing very well. You have to figure out, what does that mean for you?